Hi, hi, hi. Good morning. Welcome to Journey to SEA 2024. This is Shelley-Ann Edwards Barron, your creative writing specialist, here to talk to you about all things reports, all things narratives, with a little bit of comprehension thrown in. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I don't know, this past couple of weeks I've been getting caught up in doing things, even though, yes, I know the live is supposed to begin at 11. We're a little bit past 11 today, but thank you for those of you who are able to join me live still. And of course, if you're looking at the replay, if you're looking at the recording, thank you so much for checking in. I really do appreciate it. And remember, you can always ask questions, send me messages. You can reach me on Facebook, Shelly Ann Edwards Barron. You can search me out. You can also find me at Wood Coach Youth on Facebook. And as always, in SEA, the Peacefield Approach, which is a Facebook group. I'm the admin there, one of the admins, and lots of information is shared there. So, hope you guys are feeling great coming out of the long weekend here in Trinidad and Tobago. I got some rest, which is always important. And, to check in, hang out with family a little bit. So, all right, what are we talking about today? Let's check in and see. Just going back to the schedule. If you don't have a schedule for these lives, the schedule is available in SEA, the Peacefield Approach, or you can check in with me. I can send you a copy. It's also available on my website, woodcoach.com. When you get there, just go up to Journey to SEA 2024 and you'd find all the recordings and everything there. So let's just take a quick check in on what we're covering today. So for reports, which is where I usually begin, for reports, we're doing, where are we? November. Closer look at competition reports. So we're checking in with competition reports today. And for narratives, we are looking at a narrative checklist, which I just remembered I did not open my checklist. So when I get there, let me just see, make sure I bring that up. Um, all right, I'm gonna have to do a quick review of that when we get to that point. But we're not quite there yet. Right now, we're going to be starting with reports, and then we will get to the narratives, and then I'll do a quick check in again with comprehension. Now, I had done this before. I think it was like maybe 3 or so episodes ago, but in interacting with my students and in having conversations with parents and other teachers and so on, I realized that this particular issue is something that I think many people kind of take for granted or they don't really check into it as significantly as they should. So I want to talk again about context clues because understanding context clues, it really helps with answering some of those tricky comprehension questions. And really being able to use the context clues is not just for vocabulary words, you can also use it for other types of questions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today when it comes to the comprehension, which would be at the end of this segment. So let's get into the reports, in which case we are looking at competition reports. Let me get my file up. Where are you? Competition reports. All right. So far this is like the third one we're doing in our review series with reports. And we started with accidents and then we went to incidents. Now we're looking at competitions. So of course you're doing the same structure as you worked with when you did the other two. And we're starting with the definitions, making sure that students understand the definitions. And so, okay, so this is report review. I'm going to start putting some stuff on the screen, right? Because we really want to start with the definitions. Always double check to make sure students understand what the definitions of each type of report would be, because starting with the definition means that there is a fundamental understanding of the kind of report that they're working with, and that makes a difference when they go through the different plans. So definitely start with the definition. Now, the thing with competitions, and many students mix up competitions, activities, and events. Now, overall, there are some similarities, but the major difference with competitions is that with a competition, you have winners and trophies and recognition of who came first, second, and third. And so, what makes a competition different from an activity is that there are prizes for winners. So, activities might have tokens of appreciation, but competitions have winners for the whatever event it is, and we also would have like second, at least second place, if it's like two people squaring off. But usually you would have like first, second, and third. You would have scores and points allocated and those kinds of things. You would have judges and people who are deciding winners and that type of thing. So when it comes to competition, think winner, prizes, first, second, third. That is the main difference between the competition and the activity. All right, so let's take a look at some things to remember with competition. We want to recognize two types of competitions. And when I say two types, what I mean is in terms of participation level, because that's going to make a difference in terms of the rules and the regulations, as well as how the competition is going to unfold. So we have two types of competitions. Um, I'm going to group them. We have individual and team. Right, so I'm just going to put that up so everybody would see that. So for those of you who are following along, taking notes, if you come back to the video, you can easily see these things. So yeah, so two types of competitions, individual competitions and team competitions. Now, what is an individual competition? This is a competition where we have one person competing against other individuals. So one person in the competing against other people from different probably from different schools, from different walks of life. What we're having is just as one person, and then so when we have a winner, we have an individual winning. When we have a team competition, we have teams playing off against different teams. And when we have a winner, we have teams winning. And teams can comprise from anywhere from two to, let's say, four people, I would say, two to four people in the team. And that would be the easiest, the most manageable when we have to talk a lot about different things. Let's say if it's a team sport, however, like basketball, football, cricket, we have more members on the team. But if you can choose, let's say like a spelling bee or something like that, yeah, choose a smaller team. It works best that way. So all right, so what do we know so far about competition reports that we need to check in, make sure students remember? We're talking about a team versus an individual. And we want to make sure we know that because, like I said, for the endings in terms of winning prizes and so on, we can have individual prizes versus team prizes. And also with team sports, you might also have, special prizes. So, like in a cricket competition, there's usually something called man of the match, where you would, identify one person out of the team who did exceptionally well. With basketball, I think they call them MVP, most valuable player. With um, football, I think man of the match or MVP as well. Could work. So there are options that you can add in different things when there is a team sport or a team competition. With individual competitions, we don't necessarily have that kind of thing because of the nature of individual competitions. And so that's something to definitely remember. And so once you get the definitions clear, once you make sure students understand these things, the next step is to start brainstorming about different types of competitions and how these games and so on, how these competitions unfold, especially sports. Because let me tell you something, you would be surprised at the number of students who don't know how cricket is played, and Trinidad is partially cricket country, you know? So we're football country, cricket country, right? So those are the two sports that, in terms of team sports, that we are most known for. Cricket in particular, because of our, individual players. We have Brian Lara and so on. And so you really should make sure that students know how to play these games. And the difference in a student who knows how to play the game and a student who does not know how to play the game is that they will be able to much better organize their thoughts and organize the information. So it is a good idea. I mean, if the student doesn't know how to play the game, they can, probably make some stuff up and still get a decent score. But of course, the more knowledge you have on the actual thing that you're reporting on, is the more confident you'll be as a writer doing the report, right? So that's something that you definitely want to work on. So cricket, football, basketball, those are the three that I would recommend for the team sports in particular. In terms of team competitions, you might have a team competition to do cleanup at your school, to do like a spelling bee, might have a team going up to represent the school, not necessarily an individual. You can have for teams, you can do um, art projects that have prizes, competitions at the end. So, and like I said, you want to work with a team of, let's say, 2 to 4 when you are deciding the number of the team yourself. But make a list. So, this is something you want to brainstorm. Brainstorm with the students a list of team competitions and a list of individual competitions, and then go through and have them research. And research in these competitions is going to be a lot of fun if we actually engage in some of the competitions that students would need to know about. So you're researching cricket, go outside and play some cricket. If you're researching football, play some football. Or at least if you don't have the opportunity to go and play the game, which is number one, of course, multisensory learning, highly, highly recommend games. Take a look at the game on television, or at least a small part of it. You can even look at instructional videos. Have students do activities like create instructional videos um, for the sports or whatever that you're working on, just so that they can have that interaction with the research, as well as they would be able to share with others. So, an awesome activity to do when investigating the competition reports with a class. Let's say you're working with a classroom, then divide the students into groups and have them research on particular ones and then present to the class. And that would be one of the best ways to get students not only engaged in understanding what they've learned, but they will master it to the point that they can share it with others so that the other people can understand it. And then you do activities from there to help the students keep engaged and to really understand competitions. That is the best way that I know how to get students really enjoying their writing and being excited about writing reports. When last did you have a student feeling excited about writing a report? Students get excited when they have the information, when they know what they're about, and they know what they can write because they've researched it, they've done the legwork, as we call it, to put together information so they know what to do. And then from there, we're going on to what goes into each paragraph, formatting that, and then at the end of it, That's when you would have students write a complete competition report selecting from prompts, right? So that's the kind of thing that we're working with when we are researching and reinforcing understanding of competition reports. Remember, two types of competitions, individual and team, and you want to brainstorm a list of each and then have students do the research. What are the rules? How do people engage? How do they play? What kind of prizes are typically given? How are the prizes given? What do the judges say at the end of the competition? Do they say anything or do people just collect prizes and go home? What are opening ceremonies like? What is an opening ceremony? What are closing ceremonies like? So we want to go through the whole range of all the different parts of a competition so that students can understand and really have the details and then have them decide which details are the most important to include in which of the paragraphs. And then they brainstorm that. And by the end of a week, and we're doing all of this in 1 week, right? Because if we're starting today, we're dealing with definitions today. Tomorrow, we can do the brainstorming, do the checklist. How many different individual competitions can they come up with? How many group competitions or team competitions can they come up with? And then, so today's Tuesday, so we're talking Wednesday, Thursday, um, and Friday, issue the assignment of the research and have them present next week, Monday. So they have a few days to do their research and put the information together. They're presenting on Monday. Tuesday, we're writing a full competition report and wrapping that up so that then we could move on to another type of report to study. So that's your week and that's what you're working on. And if you're working with just your child, one student, following the same thing, except that you would be a little bit more involved in the beginning with the brainstorming, and then you can have them do the research on their own, then come back to you and make the presentation to you, and then you discuss it, fill in whatever details you think are missing, and there you have it. A complete week of activities, working on reports, getting students excited and energized and interested in what they're doing because it's interactive. And for those of you who have been following me with the creative writing from the beginning, you know that my number one thing is getting students involved because that is where you get them in charge of their own learning. And that's what you want because you're not going to be there with them all the time. There are times when they will have to do these things on their own. And certainly in the exam, you're not going to be there unless you're that voice in their head. And that is awesome and everything, but you're not actually physically there. So then what do? You end up with the situation where you have the student on their own and you want to know that they are working well. So you have to empower them and you empower them throughout the process of um, really getting to the point where they understand, they have investigated things, they have worked on things, and so they are now much more empowered and working toward their development, right? So, and that's what you want. Like I said, you want the student to be engaged. So, all right. So that's for competition reports. What else do I need to remind you about that? So you know the five paragraph format. We know what a competition is. We have a plan for the week of study. And yeah, I think that's it. Of course, language. This is one thing. Yes, I should add this before we close off. Language, in terms of the jargon that's used with the competition, you want to have a few of those, but remember, you're not throwing out jargon. That's not the point of it. But you do want to keep the language as formal as possible. So when the student goes through and you have them give you sentences and give you ideas of what they can write in each paragraph, make sure that you give them the vocabulary that they need. Now, it's all well and good to have the students do their own research and find the vocabulary, but you always want to be there to supplement and make sure they have the information. So remember, we're not testing yet. So, because we're not testing yet, what we are doing while we are empowering students, we are still supporting them as best as we can by providing some vocabulary. So, make sure you check through and see the reports and the types of competitions and so on that they're listing to make sure they have the vocabulary so that when it comes to writing, they know what they are about. They're confident, they have the words, they have the information, they have the format, structure, everything that they need to complete their competition report really well. All right, so I hope that's clear what you're working on with the competition reports. And so now I want to shift on to the narratives, which reminds me I need to get my checklist for the narratives. Um, let me see, I think. Yeah, when I was putting things together this morning, I did not think about the checklist too much, but now that I'm doing this session, I realize, yeah, the checklist is kind of important. Um, so all right, I think there's a checklist in um yep, there is a checklist in the narrative series, booklet series that I have. For those of you, if you don't have a copy, let me just show you quickly what that is about. Because preparing for SEA, I think this is a really good series to help you. Those who have used it have indicated that the series worked pretty well. Now, it's a lot of information. So once I had a parent when I did the December sessions, I used to use these booklets in the December sessions, but it's a lot to cram into 1 week. So I've since stopped using those, and I'm rolling out a new series, a new structure for the December sessions, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But let me just go through for the narrative series. I think I can share screen here and just show you quickly because so this is the series narrative writing challenge, 7 stories. And in this, we're looking at realistic fiction, fantasy, science fiction, folklore and fairy tales, action and adventure, mystery, and thriller and suspense. So my philosophy is that students write really awesome stories when they know what they're writing about and they can actually draw on skills and strategies that help them make their stories exciting. And so this is the introductory booklet. So I'm going to scan it through quickly just to show you what is in the whole series. Um, this is a program format. Booklet 1 would be analyzing narrative prompts. Booklet 2, focus on realistic stories. And when we get to the focus booklets, which there are 7 of them, you get definitions, characteristics, a sample story that you can read with the student, brainstorming notes, how to plot, 3 prompts to work with, that you can write your own writing pages, and then I believe in infusing a lot of positivity in actions even with students because it helps them feel good about themselves and feel good about their writing. And that's what you want. A student who feels good about their writing is going to write better, and they will do what is needed to learn the lessons that they want to learn. So this is something that I think would work really well. So if you don't have a copy, make sure you can get a copy. The best way to get a copy is to WhatsApp me. And you can WhatsApp me at 717-4993 right? And of course, our area code is 868. But in case you're looking at this from one of the islands, whether you're doing SEA or any kind of teaching of narrative writing with primary school students, this is going to come in really handy. So most definitely WhatsApp me. I can, send me an email address. The cost of this one is $145. And as you can see, there's a lot of information in it because you get the introduction booklet, which is this one that I'm going through. That's here, introductory booklet. Booklet one, analyzing prompts. And then we have the 7 different focus booklets: realistic stories, fantasy, action and adventure, mystery, science fiction, thriller and suspense, folklore, and fairy tale. Then, when we're finished with that, we're going to look at vivid description. Then, we're going to look at revising and editing. And then, you have self marking guidelines where you will find the checklist to help you go through to make sure that you're covering everything that you need to cover in narrative writing. You get a grading guide, grading sheet, and grading reflection so that students can practice reviewing their own writing so they can identify the issues and so on. And so the cost of that, like I said, 145, 7 stories booklets, and there are I think like about 12 booklets in all. It's digital. So once you pay, send me the receipt, let me know that you've paid. I send you the booklets, you get it instantly. So, don't have to pick up anywhere, go anywhere, do anything. And then you print the pages that you need. So you can study it online and then print the pages that you need. So let's go down to that checklist. I'm going to give you some of the information from that checklist, because as you can see in that section, there's quite a bit of information. So we have how the story begins, describing setting, describing characters, um, what characters do. That would come under content. Then we have language, figurative language, imagery, dialogue, and the vocabulary that's used. For organization, you want to follow the plot, and my advocacy is the 12-point plot development. Ooh, and I'm so happy I'm in the office today. So that there is the 12-point plot. Let me get that copy for you. Right? So this is the poster that you can get. So your child or students can memorize. You can put this up, and there are some pointers here to remind them of what goes into the 12 point. This poster comes with some flashcards, because remember, some students, they need to like have things that they can touch and manipulate. And these cards are pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. I like the print is really clean and neat and nice. um but then for this, what you get is an explanation of each of the points. So that's the hook, and then you get the information at the back so students can remember what the hook is. You get context, information at the back, you get complication. And so they're really vibrantly printed. Students are going to love working with these, and you really want the students to be engaged with it. And the best part about this is that you get the poster, the flashcards, and they there's some worksheets that you can print and use. There's an activity, an experiment, and students absolutely love this particular experiment. I use it all the time. I even use it with adults when I'm teaching how to teach creative writing. I use it with the adults as well, and it's almost like it's such a simple activity, but it's one of those mind blown kind of things. And so you get all of that plus, all of these. So you get the physical. flashcards, you get the poster, the worksheets are digital, so you can download and print as many as you like. And you get the videos explaining the 12 point, explaining how to use it, and a video of the experiment so you could see how to do it to conduct it on your own. You get access to all of that. The cost of that is 245 and 245 or 295. Let me check. So here's the thing. If you want to find out about all of these resources, go to my website and everything is there for you under resources. I'll just show you that quickly. And the reason I'm kind of pausing to show this is because I know one of the challenges with teaching creative writing is having resources that engage students and have students feeling um, like they're learning something worthwhile, it's interesting, and so on. And so the website information, it's pretty easy. I'm just putting it up on the screen. HTTPS colon backslash word coach werdcoach.com backslash resources and backslash again. I think if you forget that backslash back slash, it'll still take you to where you need to go. So there's a poster. So yeah, that's it. So it's 245 and you get a lot of stuff that you can use over and over, and it really helps the students memorize things when they have that. So you get the poster, the flashcards, and this is all the other information you get for that 245. The what makes a story great video, elements of the plot video, experiment video, practice plotting stories video, 12-point plot development video, so I go through it. Then we do um, there's a worksheet to go along with the experiment video. There's a worksheet that you can use to plot your own stories. And then there's a special note on subgenre, which is the different types of stories like realistic fiction, fantasy, and so on. There's a special note on that so that you can really get students to understand how the different kinds of stories work. They all follow a plot and they can all be written with this 12-point plot. So, quite a lot of information there that I think is absolutely worth it. Not just because I think the graphics and the poster is pretty cool, but because of how important plot is. If you followed this channel at all, you've followed hearing me talk about writing narratives, you would understand how critically important plot is and how critically important it is to really get students understanding plot. Stories make a whole lot more sense when they follow plot, and many students don't know how to deal with plot. Even after you tell them over and over, they don't know how to deal with plot. So the 12-point plot, which has a step by step, gives you information on how to do that. But then here's something that I want to share with you. My December courses are finally up. I mean, they've been open for registration a little while, but I didn't get the registration forms up. So I have them up. But you see these, I'm doing teacher training so that you can level up your creative writing instructional skills. And guess what? So this is all, so you can go and see step by step what is being taught is covering 4 days. So report writing would be the 11th to the 14th. Narrative writing would be the 18th to the 21st. And you can see what would be covered every day for the 4 days. Um, these are the reasons why you should sign up. Some background on me. And here's a list of resources. And check this out. Um, for the narrative writing, if you register for this narrative writing teacher training course, you get the flashcards, and you get the poster and access to everything I just told you. But then you also get me showing you how to use it. So that I think is if you're interested in getting a copy of the flashcards and the poster, but you're kind of concerned about, okay, once you have it, are you going to be able to use it effectively? Then register for this How to Cheat Teach the Narrative and get the information. You would get that plus um, me showing you how to do it. And that particular one is 6.95. So that pretty much works out to 8 hours because we're doing 2 hours each session and we have 4 sessions, right? 18, 19, 20, 21. Uh-huh. And so that's 6.95. And out of that 6.95, 245, you're getting a 245 value straight up because you're getting the poster and the flashcards. So you really can't go wrong with that one. And you know how I teach. If this is your first interaction with me, then go back and check some of the other videos. You know I'm very much into the multisensory learning. I'm going to show you, we'll actually do some of the experiments so that you could see how the experiments are done. So we'll definitely be doing that experiment so that you would get a chance to really understand narrative writing. So if you're kind of worried about how to teach it, how to engage with your child, then most definitely you want to engage in some of these. And then, of course, I'll also be doing the report writing. And with the report writing, guess what? You are going to be getting copies of these for the report writing. So I'm not just going to be telling you, okay, do this, and then leave you to do it on your own. I am actually going to be showing you step by step what I do in my classroom, and I'm giving you resources. And this is just one set. For the reports, this would be the textbook, the practice booklet with additional activities, and the journal for you to be able to use with your child or your students. So you're getting the material and the instruction about how to use the material while I guide you through developing creative writing skills with your students. So you're getting complete guidance with these courses. So if you're interested, again, you can go to the courses. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, I've had people use booklets and so you can check the testimonials. I've had parents being kind of surprised how their child who absolutely hates writing is actually writing and interested in writing. And I do all my classes online, and students actually want to come to class and they pay attention during the class session because it's interesting and it's engaging. And then when they're finished, they want to do the assignments because we're talking about it. I mean, for the most part, I do have some students who, it's a work in progress, so parents need to do support as well. But if you're interested in any of these, I'm doing a comprehension course. I'm doing narrative writing, report writing for students. So these are all student classes. And then this one here is for teachers and parents who want to learn how to teach the creative writing. Um, and this I generally do. Um, I'm a writing coach outside of teaching primary school. I do work with authors and so on. And this one is just, if you want to work on a manuscript but you can't seem to get it done, check in with me. We do, and this is free, co-writing sessions where you could work with me on that. But for this program, definitely. So go to the website. That's the link on the screen, woodcoach.com/courses, and you would get all the courses, and then all the registration information is there. If you want the resources only, then and you're not interested in the courses, then you can go to resources tab and get all these resources. So this one would be the for the narratives. This is the cost for the booklets that I showed you, and these are printed. They'd be delivered to you. I have the ELA past paper solutions for 2019 to 2023, and they've been grouped so that you can actually see the type of questions for each section. Seven Stories Challenge, that's the booklet that I showed you the checklist from. And then there's the report writing. There's also one for report writing. You can get that booklet too. So this is something else. This is not for students. If you want to write a book and publish, then I do have information on that as well. But just for the SEA students, quite a lot of information there. So if you are working toward SEA, you have some materials, things are going okay, but you're not seeing the results that you would like, then maybe it's time to try something a little bit more engaging and something that actually gives you resources. Because, like I said, my whole agenda in working with SEA, I believe that writing can be fun. Learning about writing can be fun, and you can still get the scores. I mean, I've had students 19. I mean, I don't believe I've gotten 20 out of 20. I don't think I've had any students, but my students generally score between 15 and 19, depending on where the student was when I started working with them. But you can guarantee at least one thing: your child or your students, they're not going to feel distressed about learning about writing because all the materials are created in such a way that they empower students. They give them the information that they need because that's what you want. You want students more engaged. And so that's the focus that I have. And for the teachers, I can show you how to use the materials because the better you are at teaching creative writing is the better the students are going to be at writing. And then there's a whole lot involved in that. You'd be surprised. When I taught university, there were sometimes where students were like ultra frustrated, and I had students at university level telling me things like, hey, when I was in primary school, Miss so and so, and they calling names to her. Yeah, they call names too. Miss so and so told me that I couldn't write, and I hated writing because it was so difficult. And these materials are ways that you can use to make it less difficult and more engaging and actually give students that step by step with worksheets and everything. So you don't have to, like, after this, do your own thing alone. You get the support. And that's really what I'm here for. I want to be able to create materials that you can use to engage students effectively. So that's it with the reports and the narratives. And so you have all the materials, you have access to it. You can go to resources. If you want to get the courses, they're all on the website as well. Registration is open. And to get those, instead of resources, as you have on the screen there, what you would put is courses, right? So if you want to get access to those December courses, that's where they are. All right. So the last thing that I want to touch on, and just take like about 5 minutes or so, is to remind you about the comprehension and context clues. All right. So we're going back to context clues with comprehension. And let me tell you something, don't underestimate context clues and how valuable they are. I was going through um, ELA practice test with a student, and one of the things I noticed he lost, I think he got like 8 out of 12, 7 out of 13, I think is what he got. And when we went through they practice tests, and we went through the questions, and we looked at the questions that he could enhance and some strategies. We recognized that if he had understood better how to apply context clues, he could have gotten at least 5 points more, which would have taken him to 12 out of 13 had he known how to apply the context clues effectively. And so, understanding context clues and how to apply context clues in each of the different areas is something that all students really need to understand. Context clues work with vocabulary questions, they work with any question that asks you meaning. Any question that asks you about meaning, focus on context clues, because what is a context clue? A context clue is a word or phrase within a passage that gives you toward a clue about what the writer is telling you. And so a context clue actually shows you how to get the answers. It shows you what the meaning is. So context clues absolutely, absolutely important. And so if you are wondering then how to implement that, what are context clues for um, let's say nonfiction? How do you recognize a context clue in nonfiction? How do you recognize a context clue in fiction or in a poem or in a graphic? How do you know to find these things? That is what I'm going to be teaching students in the comprehension sessions that I'll be doing this December. So we're looking at the comprehension in a little bit different way from the way most teachers do comprehension. So I'm not just going to be talking about like the ways to answer questions in general. We start with that because, yeah, we do have comprehension basics. So this class will be running for 5 days. So I have two groups. Group one would be 11th to the 15th. Group two would be the 18th to the 22nd. And we're meeting 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So that's 2 hours each day. And what we will be doing, so after we go through the basics and we get a sort of general understanding of what comprehension is, because you'd be surprised. I always start with a definition so students know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Some students don't understand why they have to do comprehension. They don't. And I think it's important that they do because it helps them feel more confident and in control of what they're doing. And that goes a long way to getting them to answer effectively. So day two, we'll be exploring nonfiction comprehension. So I'll be giving students a checklist, information on what is nonfiction, how nonfiction is going to work, um, how the types of questions, what they would look like, and so on. And then we're going to do a nonfiction passage comprehension in class, discuss it so students will understand. Then we do the same for fiction because it's a little different. The same way nonfiction passages are different from fiction passages, as you could imagine, the comprehension is going to be a little bit different too. There isn't like a kind of one size fits all. I mean, except for context clues, right? Context clues applies across the board. It looks a little different, but it applies, right? Um, so, and we will be looking at context clues for nonfiction, context clues for fiction, context clues for poetry, and context clues for graphic. And we're going to go through and do an activity. When we're finished, we'll do an activity for each one of them. And so students will be able to have that understanding. Now, one of the things with this, I want to do, I have it here. No, I don't have it here. But when you register, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a comprehension packet with one nonfiction, one fiction, one poem, and one graphic for you to complete for your child to complete, whoever the student is engaging. And then after the session, I'm going to send another packet to see how the student improved. And that's one of the things that I learned with, over the years of doing these kinds of classes, especially the intensive classes. We need to have what's happening at the beginning, and then we do a check at the end. And so we can kind of gauge, okay, what have you learned is going to be that significant that students are going to learn enough that you would see a difference in their comprehension. Because what we're going to be looking at as are the strategies. So you see, context clues can be applied in all of them, but then the approach is going to be slightly different. And rather than telling students just use context clues, we need to show them how do you use context clues in fiction. How would you use a context clue in comprehension for fiction, poetry, or graphics? So these are things that I think are really really important, and I'm seeing many students having challenges, and so I really want to be able to give the pointers, give the skills, give the strategies. And then of course once you have that, come January, so that's why we're doing all of these things in December. Come January, we're going to be drilling. January to the week before the exam, drills every week, writing, comprehension, the practice tests. But then the students need to have the skills before that. So that's what we're doing here, trying to give the students the skills before that, making sure that you have the skills as the instructor before that, so that come January, you know what to do, students know what to do. So now we're practicing timing, we're practicing implementation of all the things that they know. All right. So context clues, like I said, at least make sure students understand what is a context clue. What are the different kinds of context clues? So context clues isn't just like one thing. We have antonyms, we have synonyms, we have descriptions, we have explanations, we have examples. There's a list. There are different things. And as you can imagine, an example in a fiction passage is going to be a different kind of example in a non-fiction, fiction, non-fiction. I keep mixing up the two, but you know what I mean. So the idea is that students need to know what they look like, how to recognize it. So when students register for that program, they're going to go through at least three of each kind. So we'll get one to begin, one we will practice during the session, and then one as a sort of review test at the end to see how well they're able to implement. And the idea is we want to check, what did you learn? How are you going to be applying it? And so we want to do that quickly so that students keep the momentum as they're going. And for the narratives and the reports, I'm doing the same thing. When students register, they get a prompt, well, a list of prompts. They choose one and they write and submit. Then they're going to work on a couple during the session while we refine some concepts. And then at the end of it, we're going to have a one-on-one session with me. I'll meeting with every single student and half an hour, make sure they understand what we've discussed, and then they get another prompt, another list of prompts where they choose and they submit, and then I'm going to give you feedback on those so that you can see where the students are, what they understand, what are their challenges, so you know what to work on and how to work on it as they practice. So that's my agenda, and that's one of the reasons I've been kind of starting the sessions a little bit late this time around, because I'm working on these materials so that come December 11, that's the first day of how all things are going. I have the material, we have the practice, we have the worksheets, we have all these things. So you're not going to be left alone. You're not going to be lost in terms of what do I do and how do I do it. In these lives, I will continue sharing, but I'm also making opportunities available where you can get tangible, practical things, not just me speaking in the live to help you. I'm creating the worksheets, creating the books so that you can get them in hand to work with at your convenience. All right. So, yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for. I know I've been kind of going through a lot these days because I hear the complaint all the time. Can I get a worksheet for this? Is there a book on that? Where can I find information? And while there is a lot of information out there, a lot of it is not tailored to the context that we are working with, and it's not specific or streamlined. When you get a textbook that has narratives and reports in it, you're only going to get a certain amount of information. You do need to separate it to really study it and dedicate information to it. That's why my books are separated. So when you look at the materials I have, um, these three books are report writing only. Why? Because we need to have that foundation. We need to be able to get to the details of report writing. And when you do that, it's going to end up kind of a lot, and that's how I ended up. And then you get examples, you get practice activities, follow-up activities, and so on, because that's how students learn. They need to continue engaging. We can't just tell them once, and that's why our journey to SEA system is we move forward a little bit, we add some details, and then we come back and we cover again. We move forward a little bit, and then we come back and we cover again. So please take the time, go through. Here's what we're doing this week: competition reports, we're doing the brainstorming, we're making the lists, we're doing the research, and we're practicing. Narrative writing, we're going through the checklist to see what needs to be covered, what we've already covered, and we're talking a little bit about conflict, which reminds me, I almost forgot to tell you about the conflict. This might sound strange, but I have to say this. Um, I I'm gonna actually put it up on the screen as well. Conflict is a problem that causes distress or harm, right? And who feels this distress or harm, sorry, the main character. So let me write that again. Conflict. Problems, well, let me put it, a problem, make it, that causes distress or harm to the main character. I'm taking my time to say this kind of slowly and to highlight it, because even at this point, if you question a student about what is a conflict, they may not understand exactly what it is. And if a student does not understand what the conflict is, this is why their stories aren't exciting. What makes a story exciting? When there's a problem and the main character reacts to that problem, readers are interested, but it has to be a problem. So to say, for example, that um, the character found something that they didn't understand and they were troubled by it, that's not exactly a problem that causes distress or harm. We want something a little bit more intense. So I want to recommend that you really go through conflict and make sure students and your whoever is doing SEA 2024 understands what a problem is, it might sound really strange, but you'd be surprised at how many students have a general idea, but they don't know the detail. And therefore, when they're plotting, their stories aren't getting that rising action. The climax isn't going to be strong because there isn't enough of a conflict to make the problem have to have an exciting solution. And so it's all connected. So yeah, go back, look at the different types of conflict, look at how conflict influences and impacts on the main character, and make sure students understand what kind of conflict and the details of the different kinds of conflict and how that can be applied to a story. So, all right. I'm just crossing the 1 hour mark, so time for me to wrap up. Thank you for those of you who were able to continue with the live today. I know I did a lot of sharing in terms of the materials that I have, but I don't want that you just hear me speak. I want that you're able to actually implement these things. And so getting the materials, that's how you can implement these things. So yeah, take the time, check out my website, see what the resources are, and see what you don't already have that you can get a copy so that you can really get into the background and help the students. I It bothers me when students are really distressed through writing because I enjoy writing and I know that writing can be enjoyed. I know that learning about writing can be enjoyed because I do it and I teach it. And so I want to make that accessible to everybody. And that's the way I'm doing it is through these lives and through the resources, through the courses that I do. So check them out, they can really help you. All right. So woodcoach.com, that's my website. And my number, if you don't want to go through finding all of those things, just WhatsApp me and I'll point you in the right direction. Okay. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you do. Please go check out the resources. WhatsApp me if you need to answer a question about anything. And get the help that you need to really level up your creative writing instruction and help students learn narratives and reports to the point where they are masters at it and they're going to do well in the exam. All right. So enjoy the rest of your day today. Have a good one. And I shall see you next week. Next week, we're talking activity reports. And then we're going to be talking more about the narrative writing and really, really putting things together. All right. So thank you so much for your time. Check it out and come back next week and we will talk more about creative writing. Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.